and good evening. Welcome back to another very exciting show of HealthWise. I am your host, Dr. Monique Lescott, in collaboration with ZIZ on behalf of the St. Kitts Nevis Medical and Dental Association. I welcome you, and for the ones who have never been to this show, to listen to this show, I welcome you, and for those who are accustomed, welcome back. I have for you here with me Miss Nadia Rawlins of the National Counseling Center. She is on my immediate left, and on my far left, I have Miss Tracy Watley, another counselor who has served how much years as a counselor in the Federation?
Too many.
She has served a number of years as a youth counselor. And we have a very interesting lineup here for you guys. And I would like to thank you guys again for tuning in. Again, Miss Nadia Rawlins. So I will just let you introduce yourself briefly and what you do.
I don't think there's much. You said it all. So my name is Nadia Rawlins. I work as a counselor at the National Counseling Center.
It's awesome. And you're private?
I'm Tracy Watley. I do counseling private, and I'm also a psychoeducator.
Okay. You could elaborate. What exactly is psychoeducation?
Simply education about psychological things and social things and that type of stuff.
So you have a coach? If I'm feeling like I need someone to speak to, I can just come?
Stop by.
That's counseling. For me, in terms of psychosocial education, I have made it my #1 priority to educate people about these things, because I believe that sometimes you're able to face things better when you know exactly what is happening to you. So I am at the front end of the counseling process of doing the psychosocial education.
I think that is very much needed here in the Federation. At the end of the show, I'll let you let the viewers know how they can contact you and where you're located, because I think that is definitely a service that I'm sure lots of persons may need but may not necessarily know how to go about finding the link. So I will definitely be grateful if you can let the viewers know at the end of the show. So we'll get right into it. The topic for this evening is PTSD in children and adolescents. I'm not sure how many of you in viewing land has ever heard of PTSD. That's the acronym for post-traumatic stress disorder. It's a psychological term. I don't think that we necessarily elaborate and speak on it often, but it's insidious and pervasive. I think the issue is pervasive and insidious. It's basically to deal with how young persons of school age react to trauma. And in this very small federation, we have to admit that we've been having a huge issue with violent crimes for over 10 years now. And there is far-reaching consequences for such happenings. Persons are deeply affected by these things, and not sure how many of them reach out to get the particular care or attention that they may need, because it's a particular coping skills, coping mechanisms that you develop sometimes. You don't even realize it's a response of, or it's a reaction to trauma.
True.
You get into trauma bonds. You get into trauma relationships just based on the fact that you're traumatized, and then you go and you look for a partner who has those either similar traumas or maybe opposite traumas, but you're basically two broken people coming together. And so we end up with a snowball effect of a broken society. And I would really like to shed some light on this matter, and that's why I called in my two professionals to help me. So can I have the first slide? So yes, what is PTSD? Basically, as the screen says, it's a mental health condition that's triggered by a terrifying event, either experiencing it or witnessing it. So, I mean, what I wanted, you worked in the school system, Miss Watley, and I wanted you to tell us your first-hand your experience with children, it might not even be a violent crime per se, but they witness something or experience something traumatic. How do you find these children behave in a school setting when they have to go and sit in a class and focus and concentrate when deep down they're really hurting about something? How do these children, because we as society, we look at the youths, they act out and we say, oh, what's wrong with them? Why are they doing this? They can't behave, they're rude, they're this and that. The children are angry for a reason. How do you find that these children behave in the classroom setting?
Well, the thing about trauma within our system, and especially when it comes to the young and adolescent, it's very hard at times to pinpoint that it is trauma, just because by nature of what the book says, that the adolescent time are hard times, and some of these symptoms can come off as being a normal way of functioning for them. But we know differently, because we see, as you said, over the past 10 years, we would have had a lot of trauma in terms of murders, and young people are sometimes the silent victims.
And they absorb it, you know,
to these things. And so you see fights. You see very aggressive behaviors among themselves after. You see blatant, outright disrespect after things like this, because they are trying to process what is happening to them and the feelings they are happening. It will be a case where you may just touch them. And that's
it's
an innocent touch, but that's
Yeah.
a trigger to make
Based
them
on what they've
behave
experienced.
differently. And, you know, teachers would be faced with behaviors like this. And as far as some persons are concerned, these children are rude, cannot behave, and it's sometimes, most of the times, a case of they are just traumatized.
Yes, and they need an outlet to cope. What I wanted to know is, for instance, if we had a violent incident in a particular area, does the school do anything for those children coming from that area? Say, for instance, there was a murder that took place on a particular street. You might not have students that live necessarily on that street, but might live in the area. Does the school have a proactive session with these children to help them cope and process their feelings, to help them have a voice, to help them vent? Or is it that we just assume that they're going to be all right and nobody said nothing to them?
Well, I must say, over the past couple of years, the system has evolved. And we have lots of now trained school counselors who work, and they would have programs in place for things when things like this happen. So yes, there is the help, the first aid help when traumatic things happen, from a ministry level, from a school level.
And as you rightfully said, they don't necessarily have to be, you know, in close proximity to the incident. You know, it could just be hearing about it. It could just be, you know, and we send to pass around pictures on WhatsApp.
Yes,
We understand.
very traumatic pictures of the victims, the bullet-ridden bodies.
Exactly. So with PTSD, sorry, you don't have to experience it firsthand. Sometimes you're just hearing about it.
And seeing those pictures is very gory,
Yeah,
and I think it's, for a small society, it's a lot.
It's a lot.
I really think
and
it's
an adult,
a lot.
so imagine a child.
And I think it's very concerning that we have normalized the abnormal. Like, the weirdest of things right now has become normal. Since when is it normal to just have a drive-by in such a small community and not have any care or regard for who it affects and who gets shot and who doesn't get shot? Although these are, I guess, can be considered social issues, they very much affect our medical system, because then the fallout is, once these children become traumatized, it's fights every day in schools, it's aggression, they end up in our emergency room, they end up on our psychiatric wards, they end up on drugs, they end up
self-medicating.
Yes,
Self-medicate,
they end up self-medicating, they end up traumatizing other people.
Right. Right.
So that's why I decided to shine some light on, you know, PTSD, how it manifests, where it comes from, how did we get to where we're at now, where abnormal things are now normal. Like, I really needed the public to understand that our young people are angry, and they're angry for a reason. They're just not angry just because they're young and they just want to have attention. No, they have legitimate reasons to be angry. I put myself in their shoes, and I think I would probably be angry too. I would be very angry if my youth is taken away from me, my choices are taken away from me, adults are taking advantage of me. I would be angry too.
Persons are not protecting you.
And persons
yeah,
are not
different things.
Yes, I would be very, very angry. I mean,
Right.
why wouldn't I be? People are human.
Right.
And even the collective trauma of COVID added to what it is that we are feeling now is
The anxiety.
The mood,
Right.
mood disorders would have increased by a lot. So we have the anxiety,
Depression.
behaviors, depression.
So then
would have
I'm not sure if
manifested.
persons are even aware of the different, how should I say, you have anxiety and the different mood disorders. I've actually, I think I would have come across some borderline personality disorders, and I don't think these people know that they're borderline.
But a lot of things develop as a result of trauma, right? And sometimes we think it's just, you know, they just get anxious or depressed, but there's a lot of things that develop because of trauma when it's untreated. You know, if you don't do anything about it, especially for children in the younger ages, then we have adults with a lot of different psychological issues that they just never work through.
You understand? And I see that as one of the main problems right now is untreated trauma.
Yes, that's
Exactly.
Untreated trauma. So we'll go to slide 3. And we will discuss the examples of causes, possible causes of PTSD, possible reasons that persons will become traumatized. And as you can see, there is a whole list of reasons that persons will absorb an event, and the brain will process it as trauma. So the first one will be wars. That's obvious. You're going to see gory details. You're going to see persons on the road dying. I'm sure those persons in Haiti right now who is experiencing that civil unrest.
Right.
I'm sure the young people and the youngest casualty of that situation will be the children. They're going to be severely stressed. They're hungry, and they're looking at all of this violence. That has to be very hard on these children.
Children in Ukraine, in Russia, any place that has war and those kind of civil unrest, you know, you stand the chance of the children, of course, being impacted. Not just the adults, because we always think, oh, children, they're going to be okay. They're resilient. And in some cases, they really are. But they really are resilient, but, you know, some cases they're
We're
just
going to
not.
put a thumbnail on this, and we're going to take a quick commercial break. So.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to the Sinkers Craft House. This is where life begins, and what we create will leave you speechless. We train, we create, we promote, and we maintain the highest standards. Experience life for yourself. The premier craft and production facility in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Smoking big cigars. I hope you're ready for what's coming now. I'm the one on the lady that will bring it down.
And welcome back, viewers. If this is your first time with us, welcome. And if you're a customary visitor to this show, welcome back. So the topic for this evening is PTSD in children and adolescents. And I have here with me Ms. Nadia Rawlins of the National Counseling Center, and Ms. Tracy Watley, a well-experienced counselor who has, I guess, I don't like to say transition, that sounds weird, but she is now into the private sector of counseling. Yes. So we're going to come back to the slide number 3. We were listing the examples of possible causes of PTSD. We already discussed wars. The second one is a huge one, though. It's a very, very pervasive one that I would like to drive a nail in this second one. You have physical, sexual, and emotional maltreatment. This is a huge, well-known secret in our society where persons ill-treat underage children like it's normal. We have to put a stop to that. We need to understand that traumatizing children in this way is highly detrimental to the future of the nation. These children now go through arrested development. Their cognition never recovers in some cases. They never get a chance to think straight or think like a normal human being again, all because of what an adult has done to them. And it really, 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 it hurts my soul to see children suffering unnecessarily because of, I would say, very brutish adults. Very brutish adults. And this is something I don't hear spoken about enough in the media. All we hear about is how bad the children then be. What about how bad the adults are to them?
But the persons that are supposed to protect them, right? So you have the adults who are supposed to be the protectors. But then, as you say, they ill-treat them in many ways. Physically, they have sexual abuse, neglect, all of those
Violate
things.
them,
Yes.
they touch them inappropriately.
Right.
Stop touching up the children, stop it.
And then these things, of course, are imprinted on their brains. As you
Yes,
said, they never recover.
because then what I find, because I used to also teach, sometimes you see a child enact another behavior on another child, and you just have to wonder as a teacher, where did you learn that?
Right,
Who does
right.
that to you?
Right.
Where did you get the inclination? How did that enter your mind? And then you have to start wondering, like, what sort of adults is this child surrounded by?
That's why it's important to pay attention to children, because some of the times when they experience some sort of trauma, it shows up even in the way they play.
Yes.
Right? How they play with their various toys, or how they play with others.
Even the things that they draw and they
Right,
doodle. I've
exactly.
seen some very disturbing drawings coming from small children
Right.
that made me hold my invisible pearls. I was very much touched by certain things that I saw just going through the medical system, just the way how I see some of the young persons. Some of them are literally barely holding on to hope. They have been traumatized so badly, by the adults in their lives. And I wonder, how can adults live with themselves, knowing that you have ruined someone's life for the rest of their life? You have lived yours, but then you have stopped, basically arrested development, someone else's, their future. Like, I don't understand it. It takes me to a very dark place most of the time, and I don't like to think about it. So I will continue with the rest of the listing on the slide. You have being a victim or a witness to violent crimes.
Right.
You have serious illness or death of a close family member, natural or man-made disasters, severe car accidents. Now, all of these topics, a lot of our people here can fit into any one of
Right,
these
true.
points,
Right.
especially post-COVID. Even now, some persons have still not recovered financially from the loss of that they experienced in COVID. And then we have being a victim or a witness to violent crime. Now, I don't know, maybe I don't have any statistics, maybe 1 in every 3 persons growing up in St. Kitts would or will witness a violent crime at some point in time. I'm going to put it at that much.
You remember growing up when you didn't know persons who die, and then
Yes.
as young children now they go to funerals like regularly. And that wasn't a thing for us. We didn't have that
Oh,
experience.
my goodness.
But then know somebody, multiple persons actually, that would have died violently. So as you rightfully said, like, I think persons can relate to a lot of that, all of that list, of traumas that would have happened, and
And as Miss
experience
Watley
over
was
time.
saying, they would come to the school, and then now the teachers, some of them, they themselves might be traumatized too.
Of course.
So do we have, I guess we would have counseling sessions for teachers as well?
Well, that's why we have private services and then the National Counseling Center.
But it's not a must, no?
No, you
No,
can't. force
counseling is
persons
not
to
a
go.
must.
You can't force persons to go to counseling. It's about accountability. So you have to recognize that you would need the help, and that's something you have to journey on.
And that is why we do psychosocial education.
But
so
you,
that
do
it
you see how
leads-
dangerous that is, though? Because I know when I did my training, it wasn't necessarily a must, as you said,
It
but
was recommended.
recommended, but they
Yes.
also put things in place that if you don't take the counseling at least once a year as a trained medical working doctor, it's like it takes away some of your credibility.
Okay.
There's a point system that they had, and so when they offer these health awareness things, you're supposed to at least register for at least one in a year, and if you don't, then it's like it discredits you in a way as a medical profession.
I guess we are getting there to that point. We are, and I guess too, when we think about psychological things and things of counseling, remember we are coming from a society that really did not believe so much in these things.
Right.
So we are getting to a point in time where we are having the conversations now about mental health and mental wellness. And so we are beginning to, first phase, acknowledging that it's real.
Exactly.
So there was a denial that it was real.
Yes, yes.
I remember we're Caribbean nature, so don't let nobody in your business. Don't talk about your business. So we and there are persons that still have that mindset.
So then you see why this would drive the PTSD, especially in children, because then we have children being molested, they're touched inappropriately, and then the persons who are charged with the responsibility of protecting them are sometimes the perpetrators of this heinous act against the child. So then where does that leave the child? If they're indoctrinated not to speak, if they can't have a safe space, then what happens? Then all of that now builds up. And then all of a sudden, when that child becomes a problem, nobody really
or they
stops.
become an adult that can't cope with a lot of different things.
Basically, like they cannot, like this can even like affect their ability to have long-term relationships, be married, procreate, and have a healthy relationship with your offspring and your partner, which is why maybe that's why we have such an instance of persons that divorce, don't stay together. A lot of persons are unhealed and traumatized. So we'll go to the next slide. By the way, this is just a PSA. PTSD awareness. PTSD awareness month is this month of June.
Yes, month of June.
I'm not sure that we would have known this.
No, because the US. So the US have a month that they do various. Every month is a different awareness. So this month, June, is PTSD awareness month. Right, so even at my office in National Counseling Center, we have an article on our Facebook page, National Counseling Center St. Kitts.
Say it again for that. Say it again.
National Counseling Center St. Kitts. You could check out our Facebook page. There's an article there that was written by Dr. Sherilyn Crawford about PTSD.
Really?
Yes. And
you didn't bring it tonight.
Oh, sorry, my apologies. It's an initiative that the department of my ministry, my department has now, where we put out articles on the various causes every month, spearheaded by my co-worker, Mrs. Byron. So
that's awesome.
So you can check out the Facebook
So I
page
hope I can be a part of your mailing list.
Check out the Facebook page.
Awesome. I really like that.
So they can go and read that article as well on PTSD. We have that presently up on our Facebook page.
I really like that. So going on to slide 5. The examples of PTSD symptoms can include, and sometimes they can overlap. Sometimes persons might seem as if they're depressed, but the underlying reason for the depression is something that is very traumatic, that they couldn't cross that hurdle on their own.
Right.
So we have the first point is reliving the event over and over in thought or in play. So any one of the counseling teachers want to like elaborate on these points, like the symptoms, they have the reliving the nightmares, the sleep problems. So the children, they will come to school and maybe not be able to focus.
Not be able to concentrate, grades drop.
Oh, that's a big one.
Right.
Because if you can't sleep, then you can't function. And you can't study because you are reliving this nightmare or this experience over and over again. And so it becomes hard to focus.
Oh, wow. So then, in a situation like that, I mean, there's not much that the counselors can do but to try to investigate the home situation.
Yeah, to see
Do you
what's
guys
going
have,
on.
do you do like a 360 counseling with the parents and all of that?
Well, in a case where there's PTSD in a child, you have to involve the family.
That's what I'm saying.
Right?
We're
You
gonna
have to
stick a
try to
thumb. We're
figure
gonna
out.
stick a thumbnail on that
Okay.
one. We're gonna take a quick commercial break, and we'll be back shortly.
We never know when a storm may strike, but we can be prepared. At Skelec, we work tirelessly to keep our customers connected. When a storm is approaching, we activate our hurricane preparedness and response plan. After the storm, our response teams will assess the damage to our network. If you are daring enough to go outside after the storm has passed, don't touch any downed power lines and stay clear of sparking wires. We'll need you to remain patient as some restoration work may take longer than others. Before restoration work begins, we will fix any damage to our power plant and transmission lines. Then we'll restore power to priority areas, beginning with essential services like hospitals, police stations, and water pumps. After that, we'll restore power to the largest number of customers on one feeder, which will take the shortest amount of time. We will then restore power to smaller feeders and individual customers with isolated problems. Be sure not to worry. Skelec is right here with you when you need us most.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wait! Okay, now, from the beginning.
Hit it, boys.
Welcome to the Sinkers Crap House. This is where life begins, and what we create will leave you speechless. We train, we create, we promote, and we maintain the highest standards. Experience life for yourself. The premier craft and production facility in St. Kitts and Nevis.
Smoking big cigars. I hope you're ready for what's coming now. I'm the one on the lady that will bring it down.
And welcome back. Good evening again, you guys. For those of you who have been here before, welcome back, and for the new viewers, welcome. I have here with me Miss Nadia Rawlins of the National Counseling Center and Miss Tracy Watley, private counselor. Our topic for tonight is PTSD in children and adolescents. So we're going to continue with slide 5. Yeah, so we're going to allow you, the professional counselors in your field of work and your experience. Can you elaborate on these points? Like, for instance, the lack of positive emotion. I mean, how do you tell that it's not just the teenager going through their normal teenage hormonal issues? Because teenagers will get moody. What do you do?
Again, this comes from knowing that this child would have been through some form of trauma and being aware of what is happening to them. So it's forming a relationship with them that helps you to get this type of information from them. So it's not like, they're not, adolescents are not very trusting. And so you have to have a relationship with them.
So they're just naturally, like even the ones that are not traumatized?
Of
Yes,
course,
they're
yes,
not.
it's in their nature.
It's in their nature
Right.
not to be trusting of adults, especially that type of way. And so you have to have a relationship with them to know exactly what is happening to them and with them. And so that is why, you know, you try as much as possible to befriend them, show them that you care about them, and this is not you trying to get their news or anything like that, but you genuinely care about them. And so you listen out for things, and you are aware of what is happening in communities. And so even with their families also, you try as much as possible to have that type of conversation and just leave the lines open for communication.
So you would invite like all of the family that lives in the household for an like a talk, a discussion, an evaluation. Is there like a formal something that you
Well,
guys...
you don't just diagnose PTSD just like that.
That's
I
what
know
I
a lot of
mean.
us joke a lot and say we suffering
Yes.
from PTSD.
Yes.
But and it's also important to remember that not every person that experiences
Yes,
a trauma
will
develops
have
PTSD,
That's
right?
true
Because
too.
some of us, move through that process quite well, and we're able to function. So it's a whole process that you have to do. Certain questions that you have to ask. Like in my field, we do various assessments where you have different questions that you ask, and of course we have our Bible, which all counselors use, our DSM-5, which you have to follow the criteria. We say that's the Bible, right? Because you have the different criteria that you have to follow in order to diagnose. So it's not just a one-off thing to say, okay, that's PTSD.
I got you.
So you have to go through the process.
Because
as you say, some of these things that they exhibit are normal teenage, teenage behaviors.
And not all trauma cause PTSD. Because as you say, we have coping mechanisms that will, when it is that we are faced with trauma, it's normal. It's just a normal thing that happens. And then for children is when it is that they don't have the coping skills, they become overwhelmed, then is when it turns to PTSD. And so one of the things that we do is we try and teach different coping skills that they can tap into when it is that they are faced with traumatic situations.
That's awesome. Can you elaborate on those coping skills? Could you please let those in TV land know what can they do to cope when they're feeling overwhelmed? Because I think this is really important information to expose the public to. There is choices, there are options. Can you make them aware of those?
Well, coping skills are normal for us in terms of how to speak, how to identify your feelings, what it is happening to you, what to know what is normal and what is not normal,
and what triggers you.
How knowing your triggers and how to respond and how to become more resilient to different situations. These are some of the things that we would teach in coping skills.
And resilience is a key word, because children are naturally resilient. They're more resilient than us as adults sometimes, right? So they're able to, go through these things. But as Tracy rightfully said, we have to teach them how to cope. So whether you encourage them to write about their feelings, whether they're journalists, seek a trusted adult, somebody that they can talk to, because, not all the time they have somebody, a trusted adult that, they can speak to. So those things are very important to encourage children, to seek out these avenues.
I agree. And the family, how supportive are they? Because sometimes, especially if it's a family dynamic, and it's the dynamic of the family that is contributing to the trauma,
Right.
How accepting are family, especially the parental figures? Like, how do you see them accepting information like
it's
this?
a mixture.
I think it depends on the type of trauma.
Are we still in that era of children should be seen and not heard type of thing? Why is she telling these people my business type of thing?
We still have
We
those.
still
I
have
think
those.
it's a mixture. I think
It
you
depends
get a
on the
mixture.
type of
Right.
trauma
True,
it
yeah.
is, because not all trauma would evoke shame and guilt and that type of thing. So when it is a trauma that is going to bring some feeling of shame
Or embarrassment
and
to the
embarrassment,
family,
then people tend to, their coping mechanism
Is to lash out.
to hide and
to
shut down.
Right. Because
And
you don't
so-
want persons to know what's going on. So it's almost like they pretend it didn't happen.
Yes.
Compartmentalizing.
Pretend it doesn't
My
happen.
psychology has not left me.
Right, so they will pretend it didn't happen.
And
Right.
that could
But
be
that
a
itself
symptom
is a bit
too.
psychotic, though.
It's a
But
symptom.
But you could think about it. You don't want to bring shame on your family, the embarrassment. And our society, you don't want to be looked at differently. You don't want to be judged. So, we just pretend, let's pretend like that didn't happen, and
Yes.
she's going to be okay, and she's going to get over it. It happens.
Wow, I didn't expect to hear that one. I thought they would have been, even if they were embarrassed, kind of insensitive to just say, well, my child will just get over it.
But there are also some parents that would advocate, and really fight for their child. So that's why I said it's a mixture.
It's a mixture.
Yeah, it is a
It
mixture.
depends on what it is.
So then if you try once and you find you were unsuccessful, would you try and approach them again a few weeks after to try and see if they would open up since the last?
Again is a type of trauma, because remember, some things too are out of your hand, and some things you have to hand over for further investigation,
Right, sure.
because as counselors, we are not investigators. And so we do not go out trying to figure out what is happening, especially in times sexual trauma and those things. You leave it for the different authorities and different departments to work with that aspect of it. You just do the supportive part of it in terms of dealing with the feelings part
How to cope,
of
how to manage,
coping
yeah.
and manage what it is that is happening.
Very interesting. I didn't realize that it was so much that went into trying to bring a bit of order in, because that's chaotic. That sounds
Yes,
like chaos.
yes,
So
of
you're
course
trying
it
to
would be,
find order
right.
in chaos. And so, to me, for instance, if I were trying to bring some justice to a situation and then the persons involved shut down, that could be so discouraging for me. Like, how do you guys find the motivation and the strength to revisit situations that have already proved to be very futile and challenging? Like, do you guys call for reinforcement? So if you, for instance, if you do it yourself the first time and you feel like you ain't getting nowhere, you're going to go back again.
It's
you
a
wanna,
process.
It's a process. It's a process.
And you already know it's a norm. Is what is happening to
It's
them
a
is
normal response.
normal response,
Right.
and you can't force them to into it. And so, you try as much as possible to encourage them along the path.
And that's why the therapeutic relationship, building the therapeutic relationship
so
is
important.
Right, because you want to make sure that they see that they can trust and, confident, you maintain confidentiality, so they're able to open up. So the therapeutic relationship is key. It's very, very important.
This sounds so scary, actually. My gosh. Like, so it means one mistake and you might lose trust. We're going to stick a thumbnail on that. I'm going to now take this opportunity to introduce our spotlight for this week. I hope you guys enjoy.
Natasha Thompson is a registered nurse midwife employed at the Joseph Nathaniel France General Hospital with 21 years of experience. Nurse Thompson is described as a hard worker who is compassionate, caring, and understanding, and shows great interest in new tasks and opportunities. She attended the Dr. William Connor Primary School, Baster Junior High, Baster Senior High, and then the Clarence Fitzroy Bryant College, where she obtained a degree in the General Nursing and Midwifery program. She is currently in the process of furthering her education online. She says her goal is to help people and make positive changes in their lives. Although employed at the JNF Hospital, Nurse Thompson's experiences have extended into other areas, including the Care Nursing Agency, the Joseph R. Henry Memorial, and the St. Kitts Biomedical MRI Center. In her spare time, she enjoys being with her family, making crafts, canvassing, sewing, music, and gardening. Nurse Thompson says her overall goal is to learn as much as she can to be a positive role model for others and leave a positive impression in the health sector and people's lives.
It's time that we realize that we must work together to thrive. The world as we know it, the sky and below it. Could I never have more wonder? Yeah, with life and all you see and the climate's changing, but hope is remaining. And we can't ignore the future. It depends on you and me. One chance, all that we got. One voice, together we stand. Take care, the world where we live. Permite a todos vivir. Tomamos la oportunidad para importar la humanidad. And I must leave no one behind because we are one climate, one Caribbean. One climate,
evening and welcome back for the customary viewers, and for those of you who have never been to the show to view before, welcome. Our topic for this evening is PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder in young children and adolescents, and I have here with me for our guests Miss Nadia Rawlins and Miss, is it Tracy Watley? Tracy Watley, sorry. So we're going to go straight to slide 6 and we're going to continue to elaborate on the examples of, you know, the symptoms of PTSD. So we have constantly looking for possible threats and being easily startled. I'm sure everybody can know of someone who is paranoid like this. I know.
Become hypervigilant because you're now looking over your shoulder, wondering if something's going to happen, you know, expecting the worst.
And jumpy,
right.
anxiety,
Easily
anxious.
startled. Right.
But I see this in some persons where there's not, like, they look for a problem too, you know. Like, there isn't a threat, but their mind is perceiving a threat even in non-threatening situations. So it's very easy to perceive this person as looking for problems when really they're trying to look for peace. But then it comes off that sort of combative way. I've seen that one.
And that came from some place, right? That response came from some place.
It's true.
So you don't just look for a threat because you may have experienced something before, right? So no, this is the response, the trauma response that you are having.
It's true.
And especially we have to think that there are multiple trauma exposure that persons would have been, because then you could have a sexual trauma, you could be the gun violence trauma, and so these are multiple traumas that just keep laying on and not being treated for, and so you'd never know exactly what is happening to the individual, especially children, again, who at most times are just a silent bystander to a lot of things, because as adults, we speak freely and do not thinking, okay, well, the child is in the corner.
That's true. We just say anything in front of children.
Listening to what is happening, and then for our social media is not filtered and
either.
so they could be scrolling through and they see everything, and so it becomes very difficult to know when and how things would have happened to them.
And they develop these anxieties from what they see on social media, things that they think that may happen to them, things that happen to other persons.
You know what? One thing that was very heartbreaking for me, one friend of mine died from a violent gun crime, and I saw his little child a few weeks after the funeral. And, you know, I just trying to make a little conversation with the child, you know. I was trying not to bring up their daddy because I knew what happened to their daddy. And the child was like 4 years old. He said, oh, my daddy died, or the bad men come and pew, pew, pew. I was like, oh, so I looked at the mother. I felt so bad. In their small little way and his small little understanding at 4 years old, he already has a very clear understanding of what happened to his father. So I then started wondering, we have so many other children who might be going through the same thing, and he's only 4, right? So he's going to grow up insecure. That's an insecurity right there that I sense, because then I feel like he doesn't feel safe, because then he said the bad men come for my daddy. So he knows, he has a concept, a very clear concept of good men and bad men, good people and bad people. 4 years old. That made me so sad. So we're going to continue, not to cross you guys, or just letting you guys know of my experience with the topic. And some of them act helpless, hopeless, or withdrawn, denying that the event, or feeling numb. So do you try to help them to feel again?
That's the whole point. It's not just helping them to feel, but changing the way, you know, how they respond to the trauma, you know, changing the thoughts surrounding the trauma. So as we said, they're withdrawn. So things that they loved to do before, like a child who was outgoing and, you know, loved to play sports or whatever, and suddenly, you know, all of that now is not something that is interesting or exciting to them. These are things that you look out for, right? Just overall changes in the behavior of a child. You know, they're withdrawn from friends. They don't want to do things, they don't want to go places. So we really, as parents, really have to pay attention to your children.
Like, that is so concerning because, like I said, this can be depression. It can just be the normal teenage hormonal issue, or it could just be that somebody really interfere with your child, or your child witness something that has them now confused and overwhelmed. That's so scary.
So many things coming at our children every day. So many things you just don't know, right?
So it's saying here, this is slide 8. I skipped slide 7. Slide 7 was saying that the part of the brain that is actually physically affected by PTSD is the hippocampus. And that is responsible for like your creativity, your expression, and what's that? Is it?
And your memory and that kind of thing. Also, the prefrontal cortex is also affected.
So they become more impulsive because the frontal cortex would that controls your impulse. So they have poor impulse control.
Critical thinking, emotional regulation. So it affects the brain.
So it's like a time bomb. They just
affects the brain.
So any slightest thing, because their brain is already rewired for the trauma, anything can set these. So then that is why we have such an outburst now of violent fights. We never used to be fighting like that in school. We was happy children.
Well, and it's not even so much in school alone, and it's the adults do the same thing. And sometimes a lot of it is learned behavior also in terms of how to respond when you're upset, when you're angry.
How to manage your
feelings.
How
you manage your feelings, yes. And so again, it's learned behavior to an extent that when I'm angry, this is what I do. So a couple bad words, hit that type
lash
out, that type of thing.
So the trauma affects the brain, and our brain, you know, the function of the brain is to try to protect us, eh? So, I mean, when you experience some sort of trauma, your brain go into this like let's protect you mode. But then, you know, it has all these things that happen, as we say, you can't regulate your emotions, you become impulsive. You know, lots of different things happen as a result of the effects of trauma.
So it's like Pandora's box got open.
Especially,
it's an imprint on your brain.
Especially at the adolescent stage, where if we're going to talk about neurodevelopment, is at this point in their lives when they're pruning, and there's a lot of rewiring within their brain as to what to leave.
So that's why I was concerned about the arrested development, because then if they experience certain traumas as children, that's one thing, but then as their mind grows and develops, as you say, into the adolescent stage, to me that adds on a whole other layer of...
So that's why we said that they become adults that never work through. They become adults that never work through trauma. So it just keeps... It just
adds on.
Yes.
And then we have adults who you can oftentimes, when you observe, you can see at what point in their life
that they had the trauma because it's arrested development.
Yes, they behave.
Right. We're going to stick a thumbnail on that. I like what you said right there. We're going to come back to that arrested development. We're going to move into our health news with Dr. Jensen Morton.
Good afternoon, I'm Dr. Jensen Morton. I'm the Director of Health Institutions in the Ministry of Health, and today we're at the Mary Charles Hospital. Now, although many a times we focus very strongly on NF General Hospital because that is our largest and premier health facility in terms of an institution in the country, we must remember that we have two other hospitals in our peripheral sites, which is Pogson Hospital and Mary Charles Hospital, and to also remember the Cardin Home, which also falls under institutional-based health. So as I said, today I'm at the Mary Charles Hospital in Molyneux to announce for people to know that the pharmacy of the Mary Charles Hospital is now reopened. The pharmacy of Mary Charles Hospital was closed some months ago due to some issues regarding its logistics and some issues regarding its infrastructure. We have been able to address those issues such that this key and vital piece of infrastructure is once again up and running. So we're pleased to announce that this vital piece of health infrastructure is once again open to serve the persons of the rural east part of the country.
Hello everyone, good day. I am Vanessa Reed, the Chief Pharmacist for the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, and I'm pleased and happy and overjoyed to say Mary Charles Hospital Pharmacy is open again to the public. And so we welcome our patients from Sadler's to Keys to come on down to Mary Charles. We have a new pharmacist here. Her name is Miss Tillett, and she will be here willing and able to serve you with a smile.
Hi, I'm Brianne Tillett, and I'm the registered pharmacist here at Mary Charles, and I'm excited to serve the community.
We never know when a storm may strike, but we can be prepared. At Scalec, we work tirelessly to keep our customers connected. When a storm is approaching, we activate our hurricane preparedness and response plan. We monitor the storm and work closely with the authorities. We'll need you to ensure that there are no trees in the lines near you. If you need our help, call us for more information. It is likely that there will be a power outage, so make sure all your devices are fully charged. If you have a generator, make sure the changeover switch works. Ensure you have enough fuel and that your generator is isolated from the grid. It's best that you power off your main switch from the electrical panel and unplug all appliances. When calling to report faults, tell us everything. Don't leave any information out. After the storm, our response teams will assess the damage to our network. Be sure not to worry. Scalec is right here with you when you need us most.
Join us on ZIZ TV for Youth Lounge with Skanifer, a talk show on vital topics such as tourism, entrepreneurship, education, religion, sex education, and mental health, featuring experts from St. Kitts and Nevis and the Caribbean region. Tune in live on the first and third Wednesday of every month at 8:30 p.m. on ZIZ TV.
And welcome back to everyone out there in YouTube and TV land. Our topic for this evening is PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder, in children and adolescents. I have with me Miss Nadia Rawlins, the National Counseling Center, and Miss Tracy Watley, a very renowned counselor in the private sector. So we're going to continue our discussion. It was on slide 8. So we have here that PTSD can also be confused with ADHD.
Yes, yes.
Like, that is very, very concerning, because sometimes a child might not be performing as best they could in school, and it's not because they're stupid, it's not because that they can't perform or lack the ability, it's because they have certain things that are blocking their cognition. They have stunted cognitive growth. Can anyone elaborate on that one?
Right, so not just ADHD, but it can manifest as other things. So you may see, some may think it's a conduct disorder based on, what they're displaying, or oppositional defiant disorder. So many things that can mimic the symptoms of PTSD. So that's why I said it's important to really dive and dig deep to figure out what's been going on. Because as we said, earlier, children don't just
be angry.
Not even just angry or act out or behave in a certain way for no reason. There's something behind that. So you really have to dig deep before you even say, okay, this is the issue. But of course, as you say, it mimics other disorders, and that's not the case.
And the reason why I brought this to the forefront for discussion is because PTSD can affect your physical health adversely if it's untreated, It's been linked to things like chronic pain, heart disease, hypertension, gastrointestinal problems, sleep disturbances, sleep apnea. You have
Just
nightmares.
think about it like stress. Like stress affects the body as
stress
well.
and elevated cortisol issues, and all of those stress-related ailments, they lead to non-communicable diseases. And so that's where I find the burden of health now becomes an issue for healthcare professionals and the health system altogether, because then the etiology of the problem might not have been a medical issue, but then it
becomes manifested.
Yes, and it descends into that, and then now us doctors, we have to be included in the loop. If a psychologist has made these findings, I think it's really paramount that the health professionals have an idea so that they start to distinguish and differentiate diagnosis in the right way, or else I think we probably misdiagnosing people through no fault of our own.
Because they may come with a chronic pain and you think it's something physical when it's something, you know,
psychosomatic.
Because there's a physical component to mental health that it shows up in the body as physical tension and that.
And you get tension, headaches. You
think about it when you yourself are stressed, when you're stressed.
So then can you
Or
imagine that on a
Exactly.
child?
Exactly.
So that's why I brought this to our attention, because when I'm stressed, I feel like I'm totally useless. Now, can you imagine an adolescent that has peer pressure? They're trying to perform in school. They're trying to please their parents. I think we're burdening our children.
They're trying to fit in.
They're trying to fit in. Some of them might come.
Childhood and adolescence are very rough period.
Yeah, and some of them might not come from the best of circumstances financially in terms of their parents might not be making the money. Some of them might not even be eating properly. So I really feel for our young people. I really do.
There are a lot of things coming at our young people.
Yes, and they're not being shielded, and it's not fear. It's really not. So we're going to take another small commercial break. Wrap up our lovely session, I'm going to allow my guests to close the session, Miss Nadia and Miss Tracy.
Okay, so I just want to encourage parents to just pay attention to your child. You know, pay attention to them. Parents play a key role, a critical role in your child's life. So you want to be able to pay attention to them and seek the help, the necessary help. Don't pretend like it's not something never happened.
And sweeping it under the carpet.
Because, you know, the adverse effects that can have for a child later on in life. So you just want to encourage parents, you know, to really seek out help for their children when they notice, you know, differences in their behavior.
I too will join with Nadia in terms of saying for one, I've always been an advocate for children and the adolescent person. That is why as a subset, I concentrate in terms of counseling, giving counseling to young people, because I think they need a voice. I think a lot of them are misunderstood. Definitely. And they suffer, and they have to suffer through it. But that is why I'm here to say, well, no, you don't have to. And that's what my business is about. Giving them the education that they need, giving them the courage to access long-term counseling in terms of helping, that would help. That's what it is what I do.
So tell the people where they can find you. Do you have a number, a hotline?
You can contact me you can look up on Facebook for Island Therapy.
Island Therapy.
Yes, and you can contact me at 664-5921, or just reach out to me on Facebook. I would respond. Yes.
I might probably be the first one to reach out because we all need to speak to someone, you know. So I would like to take this opportunity again to thank you guys for tuning in, those in YouTube, Radio Land, or TV Land. Thank you guys for tuning in once again, and have a blessed evening.